Tonight on Reporting Scotland, armed police carry out dawn raids as part of an ongoing investigation into a gangland feud. Six men were arrested after officers carried out the raids at 6 different properties in the Glasgow area. Also on tonight's programme, we speak to islanders facing empty shelves after the Co-op cyber attack. People in the north of the country are under an extreme wildfire danger warning as dry weather continues.
Coming up in the sport, the SPFL asked Rangers for an explanation after objects were thrown from the stands in Sunday's Old Firm draw with Celtic.
And we meet the dancing duo following in the ice skates of Torvill and Dean. Hello, I'm Laura Goodwin. Welcome to Friday's programme. Armed police carried out simultaneous dawn raids as part of an ongoing investigation into a gangland feud. There have been a series of assaults, shootings and firebombing incidents across the Central Belt since March. 6 people were arrested this morning, 3 in connection with conspiracy to commit murder. It brings the total number of people arrested to 32. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, David Cowan.
In the middle of the night in Glasgow, armed police prepare for a dawn raid. One of the force's commanding officers was there. The presence of a Deputy Chief Constable, an indication of the significance of what was about to unfold and the assessment of the risks involved. The convoy of unmarked vehicles was accompanied by an ambulance, routine when the firearms unit is deployed. No sirens, flashing blue lights or advance warning as they travelled the short distance to Burlanark, where the early morning peace and quiet was duly shattered. A short time later, detectives led out 2 men in handcuffs, their faces disguised for legal reasons, those of the officers at the request of the force. One was 31, the other 26, both arrested in connection with conspiracy to commit murder and with directing serious and organised crime. 4 other raids and 4 more arrests took place elsewhere in Glasgow, in Milton of Campsie and in Wishaw. Police Scotland is trying to bring to a halt a wave of attacks across the Central Belt. The violence between the rival groups began at the start of March with a car being set on fire in Edinburgh. The 9 weeks since then have witnessed multiple incidents and multiple arrests, with charges including attempted murder. Firebombings in Glasgow and Edinburgh on business premises and private homes. Guns fired at houses. Serious assaults in Milton and Glasgow, which left an elderly woman and young boy in hospital. All part of a feud between rival organised crime groups, the violence condemned by police as dangerous and abhorrent. Today's raids bring the total number of arrests so far to 32. David Cowan, Reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Police are investigating whether or not a second incident in an Edinburgh street in the space of a month is linked to the ongoing gangland feud. Detectives say last night's 2 vehicles were deliberately set on fire in Pitcairn Grove in the city. Last month, the home of Edinburgh businessman David McMillan was targeted in the same street. There were no reports of any injuries and no one was within the vehicles at the time. Now, if you have visited your local Co-op recently, you may have noticed some stores don't have as much stock as they might normally. The company suffered a cyber attack last week, which had an impact on deliveries, leaving some shelves empty. For parts of the country reliant on the Co-op for food supplies, it has proved problematic. Lorna Gordon sent this report from Islay.
Islay is famous for its whisky, wildlife and scenery, but life here has been disrupted by a high-tech malicious hack. The only supermarket, the Co-op, its fresh food shelves empty for much of the week.
Very little coming in. It's just one of these things, isn't it?
Bread.
Bread?
Milk.
That's what you're hoping for today?
Bread and milk.
What do you think of it all?
We're going back instead of forward, I think.
I feel really sorry for the staff because they have to deal with this day and daily. It must be horrendous for them, you know.
Some here have the time and skills to make sure they're not left short.
You've been making your own bread.
Yes, but for people who are working,
this is not so good. I mean, where are they going to find time to make bread?
Has this cyber attack made it tricky for some people here?
Yes, it has.
A few small deliveries have been getting through, but some islanders say it's not been anywhere near enough.
It's poor. It's really, really poor. What's happened is something's gone wrong in the IT system, and like everyone else in society, we're all computer driven, and nobody can make a blooming decision to send food over.
I mean, I suppose they would say, you know, it's out of their control, it's a big hack, they're doing their best to fix it.
Tosh, pen and paper, go back to, you know, get people fed.
Isla's other smaller shops have been stepping up, trying to fill the gap.
It's a tough one. Obviously we're gaining from it, so it's a bonus for us. But it's tough because I went round to the co-op looking for certain things and we can't get it, like essentials like bread and milk.
Co-ops across the UK have been affected, but in communities like this, where while there are a few other smaller shops, the co-op is often the only supermarket, the impact has been particularly acute. Co-op says it takes its responsibilities to the islands very seriously and hopes to increase deliveries to places like this next week. For the hackers themselves, from Isla, this message.
I think they're selfish. We're hard-working, honest people, and we're the ones that are being impacted by all this. And we're the ones that are having to suffer in a way and try and work around it.
Cybercrime disrupting businesses and communities that rely on their goods. Lorna Gordon, reporting Scotland, Isla.
An extreme danger warning for wildfires for the north of the country is in force and is being expanded over the weekend to cover the whole of the mainland. Concern is high because of previous wildfires which devastated large areas of land and killed wildlife. Andrew Thompson sent this report from Glenmore in the Cairngorms.
A wall of fire moves across a hillside, destroying all in its path. This has become an all too common sight in Scotland in recent years. This wildfire at Cannock in the Highlands, for example, burnt through 30 square miles of scrub and woodland. Here in the Cairngorms there's particular concern about wildfires. On hillsides like this, there's huge amounts of tinder-dry vegetation, creating the perfect conditions for wildfire to take hold and then spread incredibly quickly.
Well, the climate's changing in Scotland. You know, we're going to have more periods like this where we've got long periods of dry weather that are going to lead to wildfire risk. We're all going to have to think about that in the future, and that means probably changing our behaviours more, and things that maybe that were acceptable 20, 30, 40 years ago, we're going to have to change in how we do that. So probably don't light barbecues, don't have fires. You know, you can enjoy yourself without doing these things. There's lots of stuff to do in the Cairngorms, lots of beautiful things to see, so go and do all those things and don't light a fire.
Here at Loch Morlich there can be up to 500,000 visitors a year, and that threat of fire is a serious concern at times like these, but not everyone heeds the warnings.
We ask that people don't light fires. Sometimes people will still do that, so if we find fire sites when we're out on regular patrol, we try really hard to tidy them up. What we really don't want is other people coming, seeing that somebody's had a fire and having another fire. We want to minimise the amount of fires and charcoal barbecues that are used here and also left on site.
A community trust recently took over the nearby Glenmore Cafe and Visitor Centre, and they're also working to reduce the risk of wildfire.
Glenmore only has one access road. There's only one way in and out. So actually for the resident community, for any visitors staying in Glenmore, this is a real concern. As a community trust, we're actively seeking funding to allow us to purchase our own emergency response fire equipment, and that would allow us to have trained volunteers to respond quickly.
The dry conditions have also seen river levels drop, creating the risk of water scarcity in places like the River Dee. But there's still enough around during this warm spell to cool off with a dip in the loch. Andrew Thompson, reporting Scotland, Glenmore.
A woman who reported she was raped as a child but couldn't get her case to court has now been told her abuser would have been charged under new rules. Emma Bryson was 10 when a family member began abusing her. He was never prosecuted due to insufficient evidence. She campaigned for a change in the rules, and now that change is in place. Well, Katrina Renton is with us now. We're going to hear from Emma shortly, but it helps to give a bit of context around this. Can you explain how the rules have changed?
Well, Scottish criminal law requires corroboration. That's two independent sources of evidence that a crime has been committed and that the person that's been accused was responsible for the crimes. Now, by the very nature of sexual crimes, that only the perpetrator and the victim often would be present, that has meant that verifying an allegation of rape or assault has always been difficult and meant many reports never make it to court. Of course, Scotland has a notoriously low rate of prosecutions. Now, in 2023, the Lord Advocate had corroboration in rape cases reviewed. A panel of judges decided that if a complainer reported they were distressed at the time to another person, then that could be used to corroborate the charge, meaning more cases may reach the required legal threshold. Now, in Emma Bryson's case, there were social work records and she told family members what had happened to her. This means that her case would at least have been charged and potentially made it to court.
But there have been concerns around these changes too.
Well, that's right, Laura. Some defence lawyers have said that the high threshold for corroboration was there as a safeguard against false accusations and have concerns around false allegations of rape potentially making it to court as a result of the new ruling. For example, someone could feign distress and make accusations that were not true. And Thomas Ross, who's a KC, who's a leading defence lawyer, told me that this could lead to miscarriages of justice. But of course, it also means that cases that would never have been charged in the past can now. The Crown Office has told us that since the new rules have come into force, they've been relevant in convictions for sexual offences. And for Emma, this is vindication for her campaigning.
Emma Bryson is a survivor of abuse. She was just a child.
I was sexually abused and raped by a family member, and that started from when I was about 10 years old and went on till I was about 14. I reported when I was 14 the first time, and nothing was done. I was just told, well, there wasn't any evidence, so they weren't going to take it forward. And that was a really hard thing to do, was report it in the first place. And when nothing happened as a result, you just have to kind of bury it and, you know, move on. Like, there wasn't any opportunity for me to take it any further then. And it was many, many years later that I thought about reporting it again. And, you know, having lived with it for all my adult life, I think I was better equipped to speak about it when I went back to the police again in 2016.
Unable to proceed again, Emma on the right, pictured with Susie and Shirley, started Speak Out Survivors, campaigning to make it easier to get rape and sexual abuse cases to court. In 2023, the Lord Advocate argued successfully for a change in the law.
I think it was something that myself and Susie and Shirley had been working towards for best part 7 years. And I think it's also important to say that for all three of us, when we started this campaign, it was never about, we never did so with the expectation that we would change our own cases. We did it because we wanted to make things better and easier for other rape victims in the future.
The change in the law meant that your abuser would now be charged.
And now there was sufficient evidence for my case to be charged. However, the man responsible for what happened to me had died in the interim. I guess I felt vindicated, like all the work that we'd done for those 7 years, like it was worth it. We'd been right in our view that corroboration prevented offenders from being prosecuted, and specifically sex offenders.
Do you still think about what happened to you as a child, and how does it still affect you?
I do think about what happened to me as a child. I think the child that I was lives within me, she always will. And the child that I was survived to become the adult that I am. And I'm really proud of that. And I think Susie and Shirley, you know, would both say the same thing. And I have no regrets, absolutely no regrets. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Emma Bryson speaking to Katrina Renton. Well, Amy is with us now. Amy, what have you got for us coming up on the 7 tonight?
Plenty coming up on the news at 7 as always, Laura. And cast your mind back to last month and the world famous New York Tartan Week. The pictures were just spectacular. You might think, I was actually quite surprised like this, we don't have anything obviously like that in Scotland. The first ever tartan parade is happening in Edinburgh this weekend. So we're going to see pipe bands, dance troupes from around the world, all descending on Edinburgh for this fantastic event tomorrow. And we're going to be joined by one dance school from Inverness just to find out exactly how they're preparing and how they're feeling about taking part in the very first tartan parade.
You should have had your tartan on as well.
I know, didn't get the memo, Laura.
All right, Amy,
Thanks.
many thanks indeed. Tonight's main news again. Armed police carried out dawn raids and arrested 6 men as part of an ongoing investigation into a gangland feud.
And still to come in the sport, the St Johnstone manager believes miracles can happen as his side prepare for a huge game in their bid to avoid relegation.
It comes to us all, but death can be a tricky topic to navigate and an even trickier one to talk about. Well, one venue on the south side of Glasgow is aiming to tackle some of the stigma around death and dying. As part of Demystifying Death Week, Fiona Stalker has been to visit a death cafe to hear how it's helping some people open up about the end of life.
Welcome everybody to Death Cafe.
These people have come together with one common purpose: to drink tea, eat cake and talk about death.
Shine a light on death and dying.
Jenny started this cafe 2 years ago to tackle the one certain thing we all face but are often too afraid to discuss. It has its regulars and others who are here for the first time.
I think it's a wonderful thing. My PhD subject was poetry of death and mourning, and I've got a real fascination with death in that respect. But what I'm also aware of is the fact that when my dad died, that I wasn't particularly, I felt, emotionally engaged with his death. So the reality of death, of course, is very different to an academic study of death.
Some people here are simply curious, others want to make plans, and some seeking a sanctuary after bereavement.
When the first one was advertised, I had a friend who was very ill, and by coincidence, as it turned out, I was actually in the very privileged position of being with her when she died, and it was on the morning of Jenny's first death cafe. That was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I came here at 7 o'clock in the evening, and Jenny basically welcomed me with open arms, and I did quite a lot of crying in that session.
I didn't know quite what to expect at a death cafe. I thought perhaps it would be grim, and there were some tears, but there was so much laughter and warmth and tea and cake. Very, very quickly the barriers were broken down.
For this young man, being in a death cafe after dark times actually made him appreciate life more.
I think that the more we discuss death, then surely the more appreciative you've become of life. And in circumstances where I've become close to death, I've come out of them wanting life more than ever and appreciating it more than ever.
The thing about Death Cafe is that there's no agenda, so whatever people come on the day and want to talk about, that's fine. Nothing's off limits, you can just say what you feel.
Nobody's saying death's an easy subject, but for those here tonight, it's become a little less scary and perhaps a little lighter. Fiona Stalker, reporting Scotland.
Right, time now for sport with Lewis. What have you got for us tonight?
Well, Laura, it's a huge weekend of football that lies ahead, but still a bit of mopping up from last weekend to do as well.
Okay.
So right to it, thanks very much. Hello there. Well, the Celtic goalkeeper Vayame Sinisalo says vapes, lighters, coins, mugs, as well as a bottle were thrown onto the pitch during last weekend's Old Firm match at Ibrox. The SPFL have written to Rangers for an explanation after players, including one of the home side's substitutes, were forced to clear objects from the playing area. The Ibrox club have condemned the behaviour. Today, the manager had his say on the matter.
I'll be honest with you, when bottles come on, that's something, sorry, that I don't like to see, if I'm being honest with you. So obviously the club are going to take action with it, because it can harm a player, hurt a player. I've seen it in the past with lighters.
St Johnstone manager Simo Valakari believes miracles can happen as his side look to stave off automatic relegation this weekend. Bottom of the table Saints host Ross County, who are 1 place and 6 points above them in the table. Defeat would end the Perth club's 16-year stay in the top flight, but win and there would be just 3 points between the sides with 2 games remaining.
Yeah, miracles can happen, and if we watch, Champions League semi-finals, there's a lot of crazy things happening. That's football. Football is crazy. Football is crazy. Football is crazy, and that's why it is possible. And I think as well, all the teams around us, because they think it can turn in one single moment, as we saw in the last match. One single moment, everything can turn. So miracles do happen.
And it could be a huge weekend in the SWPL as the top two go head-to-head. Hibs lead the way, and head coach Grant Scott says his players are feeling excitement and pride as they look to move a step closer to winning their first title since 2007. They host second-place Glasgow City, who are 3 points behind them at Meadowbank on Sunday. Third-place Rangers are 2 points further back ahead of their clash with Celtic.
There's a lot of excitement, a lot of pride in where we are, and then there's a little bit of nervous energy. You know, you see the players getting a little bit excitable, there's a bit of nerves there, competitive nature of it, so all of those things, which is understandable at this point.
Somebody's going to come out at the end of the game on the top of that league, or with a bigger advantage than the other one, so the magnitude of the game is obviously huge, and as I've been saying for a wee while now, every time you tick off a game, the margin for error becomes less and less.
Well, it is a perfect night for football, and Somerset Park is the setting for the Premiership playoff quarter-final second leg between Ayr United and Partick Thistle. Jonathan Sutherland will bring us all the action.
Oh, we do like to be beside the seaside on Sports Scene. We are in Ayr and conditions are perfect for the Punch and Judy show that is the Premiership quarter-final second leg between Ayr United and Partick Thistle. It is advantage Ayr United after their 1-0 victory on Tuesday night in Glasgow against Partick Thistle. Jamie Murphy with the goal. Partick Thistle with it all to do this evening, but they're hoping there might be a dilemma for Ayr United whether just to play for the draw or go all out for the win. We shall see what happens. Lying in wait next week in the semi-final is Livingston. Which side will enjoy their day out at the seaside more? Ayr United versus Partick Thistle. Join us 7:30 for Sports Scene on BBC Scotland, on the iPlayer and live streamed on the BBC Sport website.
To rugby now, and there was disappointment for Darcy Graham after missing out on selection for the British and Irish Lions, but his Edinburgh head coach Sean Everett is confident that he will bounce back and be ready for any late call-up. 8 Scots were selected in Andy Farrell's 38-man squad for this summer's tour to Australia, but the omission of Graham was a surprise to many.
You know, it wasn't an easy year for him with the injuries that he had. You know, and he came back flying. That's the type of guy he is. The character that you see on the field is the character that you have off the field. A great guy to have around the group, and he'll be back fighting for a place and hoping that you know an opportunity arises in the near future.
Sticking with sport, how are you on a pair of ice skates?
Oh, I cannot lie to you. I'll never lie. Absolutely shocking.
Absolutely shocking.
I'm not nimble.
Well, listen. Keep watching this then, you might get some tips, because Torvill and Dean will skate into Scotland this week for their last dance together on ice, marking the end of an incredible, record-breaking 50-year career performing together. Their show at the Hydro in Glasgow will also be the start of something big for Ayrshire cousins Isla and Lewis, who have landed their greatest role as a young Torvill and Dean in their farewell tour. Our entertainment reporter David Farrell has been speaking to them at their rehearsal.
Isla and Lewis, 2 cousins from Ayrshire, are lacing up their skating boots for the biggest show of their lives this weekend, playing a young Torvill and Dean. But skating on a home rink at the Hydro in Glasgow is a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I think it'll be really exciting because everyone, well, mostly everyone that we know will be there and coming to see us. It'll be a wee bit nerve-wracking knowing that everyone's there, but I think it'll be so much fun.
The Ayrshire cousins were hand-picked by Torvill and Dean after a UK-wide search to find their younger selves, getting them the seal of approval from the Olympic gold winners.
Oh, they were great, and they, you know, yeah, pretending to be us and carrying it off really well.
I think from their point of view, you know, we hope that they'll learn a lot from this experience and take a lot away with them, and just grow and develop as skaters because they're very talented.
Who knows, in 50 years they might be doing something similar.
What was your reaction when you got the phone call to say, guys, you're going to be a young Torvill and Dean on a UK tour?
I was actually just coming back from a skating competition in Bucharest. I was in an airport, and then my mum just picked up the phone and she was like, Isla, you just won't guess what's happened. Somebody's just phoned me to say that you could be in this tour. And she was like, I think this is a prank.
And you've met Torvill and Dean. What have they said to you, Lewis?
They came up and said they were really excited to meet us, and vice versa. We were really, really excited to meet them.
We were starstruck.
Well, it looks like Isla and Lewis might be the skating stars of the future. David Farrell reporting Scotland.
Wow, talented bunch. Right, time now for the weather with Judith. Not icy at all, the weather we're getting.
Their wee faces look cold. They did. Well, they won't have much of that with our weather over the next week. It's going to be a really dry spell of weather, and usually so. A very good evening to Joppa Beach there behind me. Many a happy time spent my childhood there, and we're going to see more skies like this. And here's the area satellite picture. Barely a cloud in the skies. You can see just a wee bit of weak frontal cloud pushing into the Western Isles, but that really was about it. And we saw 22 Celsius over the East Highlands today. High pressure still going to be in charge. This wee feature just kind of bringing a wee bit of cloud, some patch rain perhaps over the northwest, and maybe a few showers to the southwest early Monday morning. But that really is about it. High rebuilds, and that means next week looks predominantly dry and indeed warm as well. Dry and warm this evening, dry and clear tonight. Just a little cloud working its way into the west, and maybe the odd spot of rain coming out of any thicker cloud. Temperature-wise, generally 4 to 6 Celsius, a bit milder for the west coast. Into tomorrow, it'll be a lovely start to the day. Dry, lots of sunshine. Just that cloud along the west coast, making its way further north as we head through the course of the morning. But to all intents and purposes, it's a fine day. Lots of sunshine. And Shetland faring very well. Once again, it's been a glorious day here. A wee bit of breeze here coming in from the southwest. We might just see a bit of cloud coming into Orkney. The odd afternoon shower for the North Highlands. Lots of sunshine in the east. A wee bit of fair weather cloud, but that's about it. I think we'll see 22 Celsius here once again. Widely 19, 20, 21 Celsius across the country. Some real warmth coming out, this sunshine. It really is an unusual spell of weather. And even up the west coast, it will feel very pleasant as well. 14, 15 degrees for the Western Isles. Now, that's about what we'd normally see at this time of year. So pleasant indeed in that spring sunshine. Into the latter part of the afternoon, dry and sunny, and dry overnight with clear spells as well. Maybe a wee bit of cloud once again into the west. It's ahead of a weak weather front. It's really not going to make any inroads across Scotland. Sunday looks fine, dry, spells of sunshine. Again, maybe the odd spot of rain or drizzle over the Western Isles. Again, that's about it. And the warm temperatures stay with us. And as we head into the new week, it's all about sunshine and warmth. That's your forecast.
We'll take it. Thank you very much indeed, Judith. Now, tonight's main news again. Armed police carry out dawn raids and arrest 6 men as part of an investigation into a gangland feud. Anne McAlpine will be here with your late news at around 10:30. From all of us, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.